Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare
Hare
Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna
Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Hare Ram,
Hare. Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna,
Krishna Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna, Krishna,
Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram,
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram,
Krishna
Hare Krishna, Krishna
Hare Ram Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare
Krishna,
Hare Hare Ram
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
Hare
Shri
Ram
Advaita Shivas.
Hare Krishna Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare Ram Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna
Hare Krishna,
Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Hare. Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare. Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavad Pranam.
Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, everyone. Yes, so can we start Kirtan?
Yeah, Prabhu, they are ready. Very good.
So I would request
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Mataji, I would request everyone to unmute, please, and then sing along. Follow them.
Vishnupadaya
Shaya Srimad Bhaktivedanta Amin Nidhina
Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Prachadini Nirvishesha Nyamani
Gauravani Shesha Punyavani Paschatya Deshata Chaitanya Shiva Sadi Chaitanya Nityananda Advaita Sadi Gautama Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Krishna Chaitanya Nanda Srivasadi Bhakta
I disappeared.
Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Hare
श्री श्री राधा श्याम सुंदर की जय,
जय।
श्री श्री बिहारी की जय, सावन चंद्र की जय, श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय, गुरु महाराज की जय, जय गौर प्रेमानंदे। थैंक यू प्रभु जी।
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Mukunda Prabhu, wonderful Kirtan. Thank you very much. So, Hare Krishna, Ajit Krishna, Prabhu, Dhanavad, Pranam, all Guru Srila Prabhupada. Please accept.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dana Pranam, Guru Prabhupada. Jai.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for joining. You can take over, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you so much, Prabhuji's, Mataji's children for the wonderful Kirtan. As always, that is so inspiring. Very nice.
Today we have, after a long time, Shirisha Mataji and kids. I think they are online, so let's welcome them once. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Hare Krishna Mataji, Hari Bol. Thank you very much for joining this call. And let's welcome them. I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Sanga Prabhu, these are actually some of our friends.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I'm going to introduce them.
Yes, please go ahead. Sorry, I thought it's our Shirisha Mataji's kids.
Shirisha,
Shirisha
girl
Mataji.
that you're seeing in the...
Yeah, so her name is Risha.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. His son, his name is Yashwin.
Ashwin Prabhu, Hari Bol.
Yashwin.
Yashwin.
Hey, you said the thing wrong. You said her son.
Oh, okay, very nice. So let's all welcome Shirisha Mataji and Ashwin Prabhu by chanting 3 times loudly. Haribol.
Haribol.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to introduce you to the parents also, Bhaktasanga Prabhu and all the devotees there. Ramesh Prabhu, you want to just...
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hello, Ji.
Hare Krishna. Very nice.
He is also lives in the same suburb as us, Peachtree City, here in Atlanta.
Very nice.
And these are his 2 wonderful kids. So
We have very good association with Ajit Krishna Prabhu. Now, the slogan of Allstate, right? You know what is the slogan of Allstate? You are in safe hands. So that means you are in safe hands.
we're all trying to be in
Hmm.
safe hands of Krishna and all of his devotees. So
Nice. Thank you, Prabhu, for joining.
Thank you.
and his good wife is Sangeeta Mataji. So she's not on the screen right now, but they are all also regular participants of our when we do our satsangs. So
Say Haribol to her also, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu. Please go ahead.
okay, Prabhuji. So before we get started, should we do a quick recap of last week's class? If somebody would like to do a quick recap, and then we can proceed from that point on.
Yes, Prabhu.
I can try. I didn't attend, but I heard the lecture and it was very interesting. Somehow I missed last week to attend,
Yes,
thinking that it was the Thursday, but I was hearing the lecture. It was very wonderful. It was mainly last week. It was text 10 and text 11. Those two were covered, and in the text 10, I'm just giving brief points, Prabhuji. Mainly,
Yes,
like
go ahead.
the word smiling was used. And Krishna is always very happy when his devotees come and surrender him, or when the devotees take his shelter. So that was the key point. And in text 11, elaborately, the explanation is you don't have to lament, neither for living or dead. And that's where the detail, the way you explained, that was very impressive, Prabhuji. Mainly, Krishna is teaching 2 things. One is body and soul are different. That's the beginning part. And once you know that, the ending part is you have to surrender. But then in the process, there's so many things like why body and soul are different. Like when soul enters the body, then it's a birth. And then when soul leaves the body, it's a death for the body. But truly, soul never dies or takes birth. So Krishna is saying, just like how like you don't have to lament that these Kauravas will die. Anyway, they will die. Like everybody has a death because that's a body, but the soul never dies. So you don't have to lament for something that does not die or that does not take birth, because it's always there. Um, and the goal is mainly to realize that this body and soul are different. And once you realize that, and then comes Krishna says, if once you surrender, then I take away all your sins. And when I take away all your sins, I'm completely assuring that all sins are nullified, and then you will also escape from the cycle of birth and death, because this cycle of birth and death is mainly given um, for your enjoyment. You're not pleasing for Krishna. And then the question comes, okay, then what should we do to make Krishna happy? And then in that way, like our duty is only to please Krishna, and that is, we will be happy only if we serve Krishna, but not we enjoy. And that's what happens in this, why we all get cycle of birth and death. And also another thing, example you mentioned, the whole point is going back to Godhead. Like just like Ram Shyam Prabhu gave the example, you have to go back to your home, end of the day, wherever you go around. So we have to go back to Krishna, which is our back to Godhead. And just like you gave the example fish, and fish, you can't make fish sit on a golden, you know, uh, palace or golden crown. You have to make fish in the water. So we all have to go where we belong to. We think that we're enjoying. So the summary is that you don't have to lament if you realize this part. And but when you're there, you have to do your duty, and your duty is to please Krishna. And then how we will please Krishna, and that's where we need to know what should we do to serve him. And that's how the summary. um, and then just couple other points, I was very impressed when, for two questions, Prabhuji, like Vatsala Mataji asked, why should, like, how about the uneducated people? Then you gave a good example, like Krishna sees bhakti. It's not about how many shlokas you recite. So when I was listening that, I remembered some incident that I wanted to share very quickly. It's a short one. My grandmother, my mom's mother, she didn't know how to write or read. She only knew to write her name and Rama. So she wrote throughout her life Ram Koti. Like, you know, in Telugu, they used to write Rama, 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 Rama. But we were all grandkids. So whenever we used to go for summer holidays, she used to tell us, I don't know how to read or write. So can you read this prayer for me, or read this story for me? And honestly speaking, she's the only one who is like that in their family. Rest of them are like very materialistic, but some people used to think that, oh, she doesn't know, she's uneducated, but she does all her duties. But now I look back, I'm like, what she was doing was perfect. She was doing all her household duties. She didn't have to study degrees or anything, and she was always, you know, in Krishna seva, doing her duties, thinking of Krishna. And she used to tell us, even when you sweep the floor, there is a prayer, like it, you're telling Goddess Lakshmi that you are sweeping away this, just like that. You clean up even our sins and take away so now I was trying to remember how we didn't know the value at that time when they used to. So the question of educated, uneducated, what Krishna sees is either you're educated or uneducated. Uh, do you have bhakti? Are you doing to please me? Are you doing to serve me? Or are you doing only for, you know, oh, I know so many chapters, I know so many shlokas. I was just remembering that. I quickly wanted to share that. Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. That's a very nice story that you shared.
It was very inspiring.
It's very inspiring, and the sweeping the floor is the same as Cheto Darpan Marjana.
Yes.
Cleaning the dust from the mirror of the heart. So that's a very, that shows very elevated consciousness on your grandmother's part, that she was focusing so much on serving the Supreme Lord at all times.
She was very humble. She never got angry. I mean, I'm not saying, but at least to my knowledge, as long as. So internally, they were very blissful, but not educated. So those are the key points I have remembered, Prabhuji, and others can add some more.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mataji. That was a very nice summary, very detailed summary of what we did last week. If anybody else would like to add anything to that?
Yep, Prabhuji, I want to say something. I mean, from the last class, you started with Arjuna surrender to the Krishna. So by surrendering, Arjuna made Krishna smiling. So Krishna was just smiling in the midst of the army, you know, like when Arjuna surrendered him. So first instruction, you told, like the first instruction, Krishna told, like Mataji also told, like we are not the body, we are the spirit. So we know that they know us minata de kaumaram jara. And the last instructions Krishna told, it's not kind of instruction, Krishna demand also. Like sarva dharman paritajya mamekam saranam braja aham tam pusarpavagam mokshasami masucha. So So you were stressed there, mokshasyami masucho, why moksha required? Because our constitutional position is with the Krishna, we are the part and parcel. So like analogy, Mataji already gave that, so the fees, even though if you keep in the golden pot, cannot remain there. The fish want to go to the water only. So, and similar, like you were giving one analogy for that, the gold mines. So like we are the minute a portion of the gold, and Krishna is the gold mine. So like that, and so when Krishna was in the between the army, like senior Yuva or Madhe, so he was between that he was speaking. Krishna was speaking. So there came like he was not doing any partiality for to the since Krishna was with that Pandavas. So there was no distinction between Pandavas and Kauravas when he was delivering that Bhagavad Gita. He was instructing to Arjuna, everybody whosoever capable, they were listening that. So that, and while answering the questions of Vatsala Mataji, I think she has asked for 5 rasas, so Sant Rasa, Sakya Rasa, Dasa Rasa, Vatsalya Rasa, and Madhurya Rasa. So those all are mentioned. It was nice, really realizable. So wonderful, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the summary, and it's great that everybody remembers all of these points that are made in the class. So that that's very nice. That way, I mean, and by reminding us, hopefully, all of us benefit from what we discussed the last time. So today we'll do texts. So we are done till 12, chapter 2, text 12. So today we'll do text 13, 13, 14, and 15. They go together very well. So Mukta Sangha Prabhuji, would some of the kids like to read the verse, the Sanskrit? So you're on mute, Prabhuji.
I'm sorry. So, Brinda can read, Prabhu. Brinda is with me.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Brinda.
So we are doing 11, right? 11, 12, 13?
No, 13, 14, and 15.
13, 14, 15.
Dehinosmin yata dehe
Asmin yatha dehe
Kaumaram yavanam jara
Yavanam jara
Dehantara praptir
Tata
adehantara praptir
Yastatra namuhyati.
dhirastatranamuyate.
As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change.
Thank you, Brinda.
Thank you, Brinda. Next verse, please. 14.
Sirisha Mataji kids can, Sirisha can recite. Can she try?
Yes.
That's 14. I can share my screen if you want.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you see?
13, 14, 15, 13, 14.
Yeah. But yeah, they may not be able to read that.
Okay, so let somebody else read the Sanskrit. Prajna Mataji, can you read Sanskrit, please? And they the translation.
I'll do that, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, Prajna is reading, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Oh,
Matrasparsastu Kanteya.
Sastu Kanteya.
Sukhatam Kada.
Sukha Dukkada.
Agamapaye Nityas.
Agama Pai Nitya.
Hamsatikshasva Bharata.
Titikshasya Bharata.
Sirisha, can you read the translation now?
Translation. Here, read it.
O son of Kutni.
Confront.
O son of Kutni, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, section of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Very nice.
And if somebody would like to do 15, please.
Okay. So any other kid who is there? Krishna? Oh, you want to read?
You want to read now.
Okay. Unmute for Nimbal or Akita.
Yam hi na vyanta yanti ete urusam saba
Yatayantyate.
sama dukka purusam purusar saba
Purusham Purusham.
sama dukka sukam dhiram somarta tatya daya kalpata kate.
So amritatvaya kalpate.
Translation, please.
What? No, I think I can.
Translation.
Oh, right. Oh, best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress, and is steady in both, is certainly eligible for liberation.
Haribol.
Thank you very much. Haribol. Very nice.
Thank you, Yashwant.
Well, excuse me. Maybe why don't you unshare your screen?
You are done with Sloka. You want to read some more?
Yes, please. I can
No,
I can say the English synonyms.
No, I don't need that. It's okay. We'll listen to.
Yes, we'll listen to Prabhuji now.
Okay. Thank you so much, Yashwant, and appreciate the enthusiasm to read. That was perfect. It was wonderful. All right. So text 13, 14, and 15. This is, as we discussed last time, Krishna now is starting to give the initial spiritual instructions. And this is one of the most fundamental and basic instructions that Krishna gives in the Bhagavad Gita. Text 13, which is Dehino asmin yatha dehe kumaram yovanam jara tatha dehantara prapti dhiras tatrana muyati. So he's explaining that last time we had discussed that the body is the home of the spirit soul. The spirit soul resides in the body. So dehino asmin yatha dehe. Dehino means one who is embodied. Now, who is embodied? The soul is embodied. So, and what is the soul embodied in? Is embodied in the deha. So, dehino asmin yatha dehe. So, Krishna says, he's explaining to Arjun what happens to a spirit soul when it gets a residing place in a material body. So, he says that Arjun, right now you are concerned that by fighting you will be killing Dronacharya, Bhishma Dev, and your other relatives. But think about it this way. The real Bhishma Dev or the real Dronacharya is their soul. And the soul is residing in this body. And what you will be attacking is only the body that perishes. The body will perish, but nothing will perish as far as the soul is concerned. The soul is spiritual in nature. And he explains that fact to Arjun by saying, Dehino asmin yatha dehe. That this spirit soul is just residing in the deha, in the material body. And then he says, now think about it, Arjun. This body, in any case, is constantly changing. Body is changing. How? Krishna says, Komaram Yovanam Jara. Says these are the stages that the body passes in. Komaram is like a little childhood. Yovanam is youth. Jara is old age. So he says the body is changing from childhood to youth to old age, and then after old age it vanishes, it dies. When the soul leaves the body, that particular event is called death. So he says that the soul doesn't die, it's just that the body is undergoing these changes. So this is instruction for us, and everybody has seen this. We see this as practical experience. Body is constantly changing. If you look at yourself today in the mirror, you don't look anything like what you look like. Well, for those of us who are many decades old, more than half a century old, for us, if we think back 40 years, the body doesn't look anything like what it looks now. You look at your childhood pictures, you look completely different. You look at your current pictures, look completely different. So Krishna is saying that the child body, that is already gone. Now a person whose childhood body is gone, he is either in youth or in old age. Or if a person is in old age, then the youth body is also gone. So in other words, Krishna is saying, please don't be so attached to the idea that the body will one day go. Kumaram Yovanam Jara. He says, Tatha Deyandara Prapti, Dhiras Tatra Namuyati. Dhira is the steady person, a person who has a good understanding of this fact, that the body is constantly changing and one day it will stop working. And so the Dhira, the steady person, he is not affected by these changes. Dhiras Tatra Na Muyati. Muyati means deluded. Prabhupada says is not deluded or is not confused or troubled or bewildered by these changes. Now, this is, we understand and we accept this, but this isn't the easiest concept to live by. And Arjun, in fact, argues that yes, the body is changing and so forth, But by killing my relatives, I will completely lose their association, completely lose their presence. Right now, I am in their presence. When they are no more, it is a saddening event, because I will not be able to get their association anymore. So it's definitely a very valid concern on Arjun's part. But Krishna is trying to help him adjust to the fact, and thereby he's trying to help all of us adjust to the fact that bodily changes are a given. That's the law of nature. Nobody can stop it. And at some point, the body will be gone. The body will vanish. It will be no more. In fact, in the Mahabharata, there was that incident where the Pandavas were looking for water, and they had found a very nice reservoir of water. Excuse me. So there was this whole conversation that took place between the Pandavas, one by one. They were stopped from drinking the water, but they still drank it, and they supposedly died. But eventually, when Yudhishthir Maharaj came, he was asked the same question by the keeper of the pond, that what is the most surprising thing that you see? And he said, the most surprising thing is that everybody sees that their relatives are passing and leaving their bodies, but nobody accepts or believes is that the same thing will happen to my body also. They think that we will live forever. So anyway, this is, excuse me, this is just a reflection of our attachment to our current state of affairs and to our current body. We expect that our body will stay healthy and we will continue to enjoy all material facilities, just like we did in our young age and so forth. So Krishna is asking Arjun to now focus on the fact that the body changes and the body will die. Then in 14, Krishna gets a little more detailed, because when Arjun says that I understand this fact, but it is still not easy to let go of your near and dear ones, even though these are bodily relationships, it is not easy to let go of them. So in reply to that, Krishna speaks text 14, Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitushna sukha dukkha agama paino nityas tam stitikshasva bharata. Key there is tam titikshasva. Titikshava means tolerate. Tolerate. And what is Krishna asking him to tolerate? He says that this feeling, matra svarshastu kaunteya, shitushna sukha dukkha, sukh and dukh, happiness and distress. He said these are material in our material understanding, so-called happiness and so-called distress. These are simply perceptions, matra sparshas. Matra sparshas means sensory perception. Our eyes, our ears, we hear someone, we see someone, in our mind we feel happy with that association. He says, but these are all these feelings that we have for people that we see and interact with. These are products of our senses. Mind, eyes, ears, hand, touch, feet, etc. These are our feelings, these are matra sparshas. He says, but these feelings are temporary. They are like Shita and Ushna. Shitoshna Sukhadagata. He says Shita is winter season. Ushan is summer season, hot. So he says just like whenever there is heat, you can sense heat, that's a sensory perception. You can sense cold, it's your senses that are feeling cold. He says that this so-called happiness and distress that you're talking about, Arjun, about losing relatives and things like that, these are sensory perceptions. This has nothing to do with the actual relationship. Actually, you are a spirit soul, they are spirit souls. Your actual relationship with them is through me, and it is permanent. And the happiness and distress that you're talking about by gaining or losing their association, that is only what your mind and your eyes and your senses are indicating. So this is also a very deep point. I mean, but 99.99% of us, we find this good to understand, but very difficult to implement, because after all, we are in this material body and we have body relationships, and it is not easy to give up these relationships or to have such a dhira approach to these relationships. But at the same time, this is the reality, and Krishna is explaining the reality. So he says, Shitoshna Sukha Agama Paino Nityas Tam Stitikshasva Bharata. So Krishna is telling him, just learn to tolerate this. Just tolerate this happiness and tolerate this distress. Don't be attached to it. Now, this is a very, very deep and important instruction, and therefore very difficult to implement. So then Krishna goes on to the next verse to put these two verses in to put these two instructions in perspective. In text 13 and in text 14, Krishna's giving instruction. He's explaining a fact. In 13, what is he explaining? He's explaining the migration and the changes of the body. And he's saying the instruction he's giving is, don't be troubled by these changes. Be dhira, dhiras tatra namuyati. And then in 14, the fact that he's stating is matra sparshastu konteya, that this feeling of happiness and distress is basically sense perception. And again, he's saying tam stitik shasva bharata, tolerate. So two instructions he has given in each of these verses. And then in text 15, he gives the reason for these two instructions. And the reason he gives is, O best among men, Arjun, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both. So this is the dhira part. Happiness and distress, that is from text 14. Shitushna sukha dukkha. And then steady in both is from 13, dhira. He says, I'm asking you to do all this. Why? Because one who is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Is certainly eligible for liberation. So this is the first spiritual instruction that Krishna gives Arjuna. That if you learn to tolerate these events of material life, then you become eligible for liberation. Eligible for liberation means eligible to come back to the spiritual world, eligible to come back to our original home, to our to the actual place where we have come from, to the actual place where we belong. So everything that we discussed last time, like being in this body, is like being a fish out of water. And the goal of the fish can only be happy and satisfied if it gets to go back into the water. Same way, we can only be truly happy if we get to go back to the spiritual world. And here Arjuna is talking about trying to be happy in this world. And Krishna is saying you can never be happy in this world. In this world, happiness and distress will come and go, come and go, come and go. You want only happiness, but you will get happiness and distress, happiness and distress. And these will keep coming and going, coming and going. You cannot do anything to stop them. These are like the seasons. Matra sparshastu konteya shitoshna sukha dukkha. These are like seasons. Nobody can stop winter from coming. Nobody can stop summer from coming. They follow a pattern. They follow a cycle. And that cycle is determined by Krishna. And so same way Krishna is saying this happiness and distress, so-called material happiness and distress, this will just keep coming and going. Just tolerate it. And if you tolerate it, then you will be eligible for liberation. So here we see the beginning of the spiritual instruction that Krishna is giving, which is your spiritual goal should be to come back to the eternal abode of Golok Vrindavan now. And Krishna is giving this idea here because before this point, Arjun gave many good arguments. He said, if I kill them, if I kill all these warriors here on the battlefield, what will happen to their families? What will happen to their children? What will happen to their livelihood? You know, so many Dharma Shastra instructions he gave. And this connection, Krishna is saying that Arjun, you perform your duty. Your duty as a Kshatriya is to uphold the principles of religion. And if to uphold the principles of religion, you have to kill somebody who's not on the side of religion, then you should not hesitate from performing your duty. So Krishna wants Arjun to perform his duty. And why does he want him to perform his duty? Because that will make him eligible, Arjun, eligible to come back to the spiritual world. So Krishna is focusing, bringing Arjun's focus on to coming back to the spiritual world. Now, there are many important points that are made here. In the purport, Prabhupada says that, you know, Arjun should not be distressed if Bhishma Dev and Drona were to leave their bodies, because at a minimum they will get rejuvenated bodies. But Arjun is a devotee. A devotee doesn't want a material body again, even though letting go of the old jara, old body is actually not such a bad thing if a person is going to get another youthful body. Then you are free from, at least for some time, from the troubles that come along with the old age and disease. So Krishna gives, Prabhupada explains in the purport, so there is that angle also which Krishna gives, that even from a material body perspective, it is better that the old body, they let go of it and take on new rejuvenated bodies. But in text 15, Krishna is making it very clear that basically, Arjun, what I want you to do is to focus on the spiritual goal, and the spiritual goal is to get liberation. Now, in this regard, Arjun has presented all these arguments based on Dharma Shastra, based on so-called Vedic knowledge, knowledge of rituals, knowledge of, you know, what is good and what is bad. And in the Narad, so Prabhupada has actually explained a verse which says that what is the use of studying Vedas and understanding so many practices and religious rites if we don't understand the goal of those practices and the goal of those, the goal of studying the Vedas. Prabhupada says, Aradita yadi hari tapasa tatakim, naradita yadi hari tapasa tatakim. The verse basically, what it means essentially, and the verse is actually from Narapantratra. What it means is Aradita. Aradita means worship. Aradita yadi hari. If you worship Hari, Aradita yadi hari, tapasa tata kim. Tapasa means austerity. Tapasa tata kim. That what is the use to perform any penances and austerities if you are already engaged in worshipping Lord Hari. So Aradita yadi hari tapasa tata kim means if you are already worshipping Lord Hari, then you have no need to perform any more penances and austerities and sacrifices. And then the flip side to that is, Prabhupada then says, the second part of that verse is, Naradita yadi hari tapasa tata kim. So this is a very interesting verse. Both the lines are exactly the same except for the first word. First is Aradita. First verse of the first line is Aradita. Yadi hari tapasa tata kim. And second verse, first word is Naradita. The rest is the same. Yadi hari tapasa tata kim. And the second line basically says Naradita yadi hari tapasa tata kim, meaning Naradita. If you don't worship the Supreme Lord, Naradita yadi hari. Then he says, tapasa tata kim. What is the use of your performing penances and austerities? So the verse is very beautiful. First line says, if you are worshipping the Lord Hari, there is no need for you to perform penances. And if you are not worshipping Lord Hari, then what is the use of performing any penances? Naradita yadi hari tapasa tata kim. So what have you achieved by performing penances if you are not worshipping Lord Hari? So in other words, worshipping Lord Hari is the goal of the Vedas. If by studying Vedas, if by becoming a scholar, if by knowing all these Sanskrit verses, if one doesn't come to the point of bhakti, to the point of worshipping Hari, then all of these, Narapantrata says, all of these austerities that we may have learned from the Vedas would have been simply a waste of time. And same way, so Krishna is telling Arjun here, along the same lines, that Arjun, in text 15, he's saying, you have given me all these religious principles and explained all these arguments for why I should not kill them. But your goal is to achieve liberation from the cycle of birth and death. The only way you can achieve liberation from the cycle of birth and death is by performing your duty. So Arjun's duty at that particular time on the battlefield was to fight on the principles of religion to please Krishna. The same applies to all of us. Our duty is to perform bhakti. Our duty is to perform the activities of bhakti such that we may be able to please the Lord and therefore qualify to come back to the spiritual world at the end of this lifetime. And this has been explained very elaborately by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, he explains to Sanatan Goswami the principles basically of Sambandh, Abhideya and Prayojan. Sambandh, Abhideya and Prayojan. So Sambandh meaning our relationship with Krishna. He says our relationship with Krishna is that Krishna is the master and we are his servants. Abhideya, that is the process by which we can serve the Supreme Lord and achieve Prayojan, Prayojan which is the goal of life. Prayojan means goal of life. And what is our Prayojan? To attain to the lotus feet of Krishna, to go back to the spiritual world. So the Abhideya part is a very important part. And Krishna, by explaining all these verses throughout Bhagavad Gita, basically, Krishna is explaining to us the Abhideya part, along with Sambandh. Sambandh we are seeing, actually in text 13, we are seeing a little bit of the Sambandh. Krishna is saying, why are you attached to this material body? You're the spirit soul. Actually, this chapter 2 is the contents of Gita summarized. It basically gives us Sambandh, Abhideya and Prayojan. Gives us all three. Chapter 2, it tells us the Sambandh by explaining to us who we are. That we are this spirit soul. We are not the material body. And therefore, our Sambandh with Krishna is one of master and servant. And that was recently established when Arjun surrendered to Krishna and asked for instruction as his disciple in 2 or 3 verses before this text 13. So he has accepted that Sambandh here of master and servant. Then now Krishna is telling him about Abhideya. That Arjun, perform your duty. What is Abhideya in this case? Perform your duty. For us, for Arjun, his devotional service is to fight on the battlefield. For us, our devotional service is to chant the holy names, follow the 4 regulative principles, engage in sadhana bhakti. That is how surrender is defined for us. Follow the 4 regulative principles and engage in sadhana bhakti. And sadhana bhakti involves chanting, reading, glorifying the Supreme Lord like we are doing right now. This is all glorification of the Supreme Lord that is happening. So this is Abhideya. And where will it lead us? The Prayojan, that will be It will take us back to the spiritual world by the Lord's mercy. Of course, our effort has to be there. Unless we put in the effort, how can we expect the mercy of the Supreme Lord? But again, the very important point is only our effort will not take us back to the spiritual world. And that's what Prabhupada says. You may be a big scholar. You may be able to read the Vedas, recite the Vedas, know so many shlokas, have all this knowledge. But unless there is mercy of the Supreme Lord, you cannot attain to the spiritual world or understand Krishna. So mercy of the Supreme Lord is very important. And here Krishna is telling Arjuna that your prayojan is to come back to the spiritual world. And so in text 15 is the first time that Krishna gives talks about the spiritual goal to Arjuna. So with that in mind, I think that basically covers most of the important points that were there in these 3 verses. I think I'll stop here, open it up for questions. It's already actually 8:52. If somebody has questions or comments, if you like to add anything to what I spoke.
Vijayamati has raised her hand, so she can go with the question.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. 2 questions, Prabhuji. One is just to make sure I'm understanding right. So you mentioned that Arjuna asked, okay, everybody will die and this body has death, but we will miss the association and we will miss their presence, like that. So even for that, is Krishna saying the answer that because this body is temporary and everyone has to die, so just learn to tolerate it? Was that the message, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji, that's exactly the message, because he's saying learn to tolerate the separation that will inevitably come. He says because you cannot have eternal association in this material body. In this material body, you can have the association of your loved ones only for a finite period of time.
It's not an eternal association.
It's not an eternal. Eternal association will happen in the spiritual body, in the spiritual world.
So my second question is, you mentioned a shloka where you were saying first line, second line, where the English meaning you were saying that what is the use of performing any penance or austerities when you're not worshipping Hari? So what is that shloka you mentioned, Prabhuji? Maybe I missed it.
Aradhita yadi hari tapasa tata kim.
What is the source, Prabhuji? It's from
Narad Pancharatra. So you can find it in Srila Prabhupada's shloka book. That's the easiest way to find it. Just look for Aradhita, A-R-A-D-H-I-T, Aradhita yadi hari.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Madhuri, thank you for asking those questions. It's very nice when somebody is interested in finding out more about these verses.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
You're welcome, Madhuri.
Well, I have a comment.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So regarding this matra spashyastu kaunteya, shita ushna sukha dukkada, right? So basically here he's mentioning this world is complete full of duality. Shita ushna sukha dukkha. So it's completely duality. So the world, if you take anything you do, there is a dual meaning, dual opposite to that.
Right.
So it is also very funny that recently I heard in India it was raining heavily, right? So here we don't see that much, but in India when it was raining heavily, people who wanted to go around, they stopped going around and they were praying rain to stop. Okay. But at the same time, the umbrella vendor, he wanted more rain to happen because he can sell more umbrellas. So it's one food is, the one thing is if it is a food for one person, then it will be a poison for another person.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So he was praying. At the same time, hospitals and doctors, they want more patients to come in, but people don't want to get diseased. It's the same thing. So food is other man's poison. So it's completely duality. So that's what I want to add. So anything you take, there is a duality. So see, similarly here, Hita, Ushna, Sukha, Dukha, complete.
It's a very nice point, Prabhu. Thank you for mentioning that up and explaining it so nicely, because that is exactly that is Krishna's point, that this material world is full of duality, so tolerate it.
Yes.
You cannot change it, just tolerate it. And the interesting part is, if you think about why that is the case, it is all due to our tendency to, like Prabhupada says, lord it over material nature, or our tendency for sense gratification. What is pleasing to one person's senses may not be pleasing to another person's senses. And that is what leads to this duality, right? I mean, so if somebody is sick, the person who is sick, his senses are not happy at all. But the person who's going to treat him, his senses are very happy. That now I've got this person to treat. But in the spiritual world, this doesn't exist, because there is no question of trying to satisfy our senses. It's all about satisfying Krishna's senses. So there is no conflict. Everybody's focused on the same goal, satisfying Krishna's senses. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. So there's no conflict there.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So wonderful session, Prabhuji. And yep, this Prabhuji first was like 2.13, the Hinos Minatha Deve Kamaramayavnamjara. So if we see the picture, Prabhupada Maharaj, like this picture everywhere in the book, and the childhood, and then it is going young and then dying and then again cycle this wave. So it's a very, very important. It is very easy to understand, but it's very difficult to like digest. Like every moment we are changing the body. We are changing the body like cloth. We are changing the body like from childhood to young age, then youth, and then old age. And so it's a I think it all depends like what level we are to understand this. And if we understand it, this is the beginning and end, I think. So that's what I'm not eligible to comment on this. Just wanted to mention whatever came to my mouth. So, and I have seen that the book Science of Realization. That book cover page is the same, right? Right, Prabhuji?
Right.
Yeah. So
this is a very important. That's why there is that special picture, and in fact, when the Rath Yatra goes around, I'm trying to think of that Festival of India people, they have a whole diorama on it, So, I mean, it is a very important concept. But you're 100% right. It's difficult to live it, and that is why constant association of devotees, reminders, discussion of these concepts together, that will help us remember it at the right time.
Right.
What is Narada Pancharatra?
It's a set of instructions given by Narad Muni. So we follow, Brahma Narad, Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. I mean, we are in the line of disciplic succession coming from Brahmaji. Brahmaji's son is Narad Muni. So these instructions are coming to us from Brahmaji through Narad Muni, and eventually through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Prabhupada's laid a lot of emphasis on Narad Pancharatra. We follow Pancharatriki Vidhi for our deity worship and all that. That is also coming from the same source.
So is this shloka Narad Muni is telling someone else?
Yes. And this is actually even in Bhagavad Gita, I think chapter 15, text 15, I think it is, Krishna says, Sarvasya Chamindi Sanivishto Matta Smiti Jnanam Aponam Cha Vedeshcha Sarver Aham Eva Vedyo. Vedantakrit Vedavid Eva Chaham.
Which chapter?
Chapter 15, text 15, I think it is. 15:15.
Yes, Prabhu.
Vedescha sarveraham eva vidya. Right? 15:15 it is, right? Yeah, 15:15. Vedescha sarveraham eva vidya Vedantakrit Vedavid Eva Chaham. So Krishna is saying Vedescha sarveraham eva vidya, that I am the goal of studying the Vedas is to understand me. And he's saying why I can say that is because Vedantakrit Vedavid Eva Chaham. Vedantakrit meaning I am the author of the Vedas. Vedanta Vid, I am the knower of the Vedas. Eva Chaham, certainly that is me. Cha Aham, certainly I am. He says, I am the author of the Vedas. I am the subject matter of the Vedas. So I know why the Vedas were given. And so if through study of Vedas you don't understand me, then what is the use of studying Vedas? Then it is just simply mundane scholarship, as Prabhupada says. So that's the same idea in this verse from Narad Mantrajra. Aradita yadihari tapasatatakim, naradita yadihari tapasatatakim.
But how is this shloka is in context of 13, 14 and 15, Prabhuji?
Which one?
So you mentioned this shloka.
Oh, okay.
in
Yeah,
context-
yeah. It is in contact with 13, 14, 15 because in 15 Krishna gives the first spiritual instruction, which is that your goal of life should be to come back to the spiritual world, to serve me. So that is Aradita Yadihari. Or Vedeshta Sarve Rahame. The ideas of studying religious principles, because up until now Arjun was giving all these arguments, you see, moral codes. It's not good to fight with your elders, to kill them, so on, so forth. These are moral codes. Krishna is saying, what is the use of these moral codes if it doesn't bring you to my worship and to my shelter?
Thank you, Prabhuji. I was like, it's nice to hear, but when you try to connect the dots, I was like, why?
Right. Oh, good question, Madhuri. Thanks for the clarification. Other questions?
I think Brinda had a question.
Go ahead, Vrinda
Brinda?
Mataji.
Sorry, Prabhuji, she's in the restroom.
Okay, we'll wait. Somebody else can ask in the meantime.
We see some new people, devotees joining. Is that from your part of the place, Prabhu?
No, Prabhu, Narasimhan Prabhu and Mahatma Seva Prabhu are from our thing.
I don't know who is this Barsana.
Haribol Barsana Prabhu.
So just one question, Prabhuji. Maybe once you respond to that.
Okay, Madhavi, we're trying to get association of Barsana Prabhu.
Yes, I'll wait, Prabhuji. I'm saying after that, I have a question.
Okay.
Prabhuji,
Yes, Prabhuji.
can I ask a question?
Of course.
Who is this?
Tarun.
Arun Krishna Rangam. Go ahead.
So sometimes when I chant, it's like I don't want to chant, but how do I make my heart go into chanting?
Oh, that's a very good question.
Very good important question.
Very good question. First of all, it's so nice to hear that you chant. It's okay if sometimes you don't feel like chanting, but it's so nice that you at least you try to chant. And here's something that you should tell yourself, you're not the only one who sometimes has difficulty chanting. All of us have difficulty chanting sometimes because our mind goes here and there and everywhere. But Mahaprabhu's given a very good solution. He says the way you can make your chanting better and more spontaneous, meaning your heart will want to chant more, is by chanting more. In other words, you actually bring up a good point that I had forgotten to mention during this discussion also, that when you study the Vedas and regulative principles, for example, and chanting is a regulative principle, it is a regulation on us, right? That we must chant and chant so many rounds. It's a regulation. What happens when we follow regulations? It helps us develop knowledge. When you follow regulations, it helps you develop knowledge of Krishna. So when you chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, you're hearing Krishna, 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 Krishna all the time in your ear. That helps you develop knowledge of Krishna. Then what happens is, when you develop knowledge, then it leads to bhakti. Knowledge leads to bhakti. And bhakti is the goal of life. Bhakti means serving Krishna. So first you just follow the instruction. If dad is saying or mom is saying chant, just follow it and chant it. And when you chant, you will develop knowledge of Krishna. And when you develop knowledge of Krishna, your heart will actually want to chant more. So that's the sequence. Regulative principle leads to knowledge, which leads to bhakti.
Okay, Prabhuji, I'll try to chant.
Yay! That's very nice. I'm very impressed. Good job.
Brinda is back.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Brinda, can you?
Hare Krishna.
So my question.
Yeah, we cannot see you, Vrinda. Oh, there she is. Okay.
My question is, so the sloka you said, based on the sloka, there's winter and summer, the seasons, and they're all temporary. So my question is, how do you understand that they're temporary?
The seasons are temporary because they don't last forever, right? They only last for a few months. Summer season will last only from May through August or something. And winter season is very uncomfortable. It's cold, like now it's cold, but it won't last forever. It'll just go from December through March. It'll be all right then after that. So these are temporary. In same way, some days you feel very happy. Oh, I got this. Oh, I got that, right? Let's say you were studying very hard for your exams, right? That's a lot of hard work. So that's like a little difficult. But when your exams are over, then the hard work is finished, right? So then you feel very happy. Then when your break is over and it's time to go to school again, then the happiness goes away. And again, you're like, oh my God, I got to study more now, right? So that's why these happiness and distress, they are temporary. They're only there for a limited period of time. Does that help answer your question, or?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Very good question.
Prabhuji, if you can put a bit more light on this, you mentioned Sambandha, Avideya, and Prayojana. So definition-wise, that's very okay and clear. So there is detail kind of in the Sambandha, like Sambandha in between Sambandha, Avideya is there. So if we divide not only 3 parts, it can be 5 parts also. Like Sambandha Avideya, then Avideya, then Avideya Prayojana, then Prayojana. So like in the detail, I was just trying to understand in the deep dive how we can make it kind of clear understanding in the terms of, again, then soul, super soul, and means not soul, that Bhagwan realization, Bhagwan Paramatma, what Brahman, Paramatma, and Super Soul. So relating to that, something like I'm just asking arbitrarily. I'm not sure like what I'm exactly asking, but this one, when we were doing that Bhakti Shastri, so there it was explained kind of. So if you can put a bit more light on this, so maybe we can, I can get a release of your nectar.
Prabhuji, so is your question related to, I'm just trying to fully understand your question. Is your question that how is Sambandh, Avideya and Prayojan related to Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagwan realization?
Yes, yes, and when we try to understand that Sambandha, Avideya and Prayojana, so in between there is also a stage, Sambandha, Avideya, between that Sambandha, Avideya we say, and in between the Avideya and Prayojana, there is the stage that is the Avideya Prayojana. So like between 1 to 2, 1.5 is there. So, yeah. So like Kanishta Adhikari, Uttama, Madhyama Adhikari, Uttama Adhikari are there. So one cannot go from Kanishta to Madhyama directly, right? So there is between Kanishta and Madhyama, Kanishta Madhyama. And between Madhyama and Uttama, there is the Madhyama Uttama. Then there will be Uttama. And
right.
So that way I was trying to understand.
So stages of progress, I mean, as far as the devotee level is concerned, you know, Ganesh, Madhyam and Uttam Adhikari. So there it's a gradual scale. It's not a step function. You know, it's like a gradual scale. So you're going to 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 4, 5, like that.
Right.
But as far as Sambandh, Abhideya and Prayojan are concerned, they are basically quite distinct in this regard. Sambandh basically means our connection with Krishna. That's the simplest and easiest way to think about it. So whatever, I mean, the Sambandh, Abhideya and Prayojan is a very nice framework with which to understand the bigger picture. In the sense, what I mean by that is, when you're reading Bhagavad Gita, for example, there is in chapter 2, so overall in Bhagavad Gita, there are 5 topics covered.
Yeah.
Who are you? Who is God? What is our relationship with God? What is time and what is karma? Now, if you think about it, all these 5 will fit into one of the 3 categories of Sambandh, Avideya and Prayojan. So for example, who are we? We are spirit soul. And who is God? God is Krishna. And what is our relationship between God and so relationship between living entity and God, that is Sambandh. Right? Then Abhideya becomes, when you think about Bhagavad Gita, when they're talking about karma, what is karma? What should your karma be? Your karma should be such that it liberates you from the cycle of birth and death. Right? Yeah. So that is, so the third topic becomes what should your karma be? Your karma should be that which liberates you from the cycle of birth and death. So that is bhakti. Right? Yeah. So that becomes that is Abhideya. And then Prayojan is the ultimate goal. Krishna says, Sarva dharman pariteja mamekam sharanam. But the other two topics of Bhagavad Gita, time factor and what is material nature, they basically help you understand Abhideya, your practice. Because when you understand your spirit soul being influenced by time and acting under the influence of modes of material nature, these 3 things combined basically tell you about your position. Right? Who am I? I'm spirit soul. Where am I? I'm in this material world. How is the material world influencing me? Through influence of time and through influence of 3 modes. Right? So this helps us understand our position. What's the use of understanding our position? So we can understand what we are supposed to do to serve Krishna. So these 3 topics, 3 of the 5 topics of Bhagavad Gita help us understand our sambandh with Krishna. final instruction of Krishna, Sarvadhaman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Vaja, that is Abhideya. That Mamekam Sharanam Vaja, come to me, do my bhakti. So I hope that helps a little bit. My point is that Sambandh, Abhideya and Prayojan, if you look at them as three distinct categories, they help you understand what Bhagavatam is saying, what CC is saying, what Bhagavad Gita is saying, and helps you put it all together.
Nice, Prabhuji. Yeah, it helps, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Yeah, and how it relates with that Brahman, Paramatma, and Super Soul, Prabhuji.
Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhavaneti, Shabdati.
Yeah.
So the three types of realizations, Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita that you come to Bhagwan realization, because he's saying Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhavaneti. So there are three types of realizations. One is impersonal Brahman, that is Brahmeti.
Right.
There the practitioner thinks that Krishna is just this bright light, Brahmajyoti. He doesn't realize that no, Krishna is a person. So those practitioners, they only get Brahman realization. They think that if they can see that light, they will be successful. So that is their limited understanding. But better than that, higher than that is Paramatma realization, where the practitioner says, no. Krishna has this effulgence, that is the Brahmajyoti, but behind that, he's the Paramatma who resides in our heart as Super Soul. So the yogi who wants to realize Paramatma, then he sits down in one place and he concentrates on the Super Soul within your heart. And when they are successful, they can see the Super Soul in their heart. But the limitation with that realization, that's called Paramatma realization, is that you cannot interact with the Super Soul. You cannot serve him. You can see him. You can offer obeisances to him. But then how will you serve him? So to serve and to have direct one-on-one relationship, one-to-one personal relationship, Krishna says, that's why higher than Paramatma realization is Bhagwan realization, where if you realize that I am the Super Soul in your heart, but Super Soul is an expansion of me, and I am Krishna, the person Krishna. And so you have a relationship with the person Krishna. And if you come back to the spiritual world, then you can actually interact with me. Like you see in all the depictions of Krishna, he's playing with cowherd boys, he's interacting with Mother Yashoda, with the Gopas, the Gopis. There's one-on-one relationship, one-on-one interaction with Krishna. So that is possible when we go back to the spiritual world. And that is possible for the bhakta, the person who wants to realize Bhagwan as a person. He says, I am a person, Krishna is a person, we have a relationship, we can interact.
Very nice, Prabhuji. So it relates Sambandha, there we have to make the relationship, and not like the impersonalist, like they are thinking like there is the energy, light, but and the effulgence.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Prabhuji, for enlightening us. Yeah.
You're welcome, Prabhu. Very good. Nice question, Prabhu. Thank you for asking that.
I think we are okay, Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhu. So,
yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Again, for those who have joined newly, Shirisha and her brother.
Ramesh, Shirisha and Yashwin, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
We have this every Friday, 7:30. So if you want to join, please.
7:30 on Fridays?
Yeah, Shirisha, would you like to join?
Yes.
You're most welcome.
There you go. Okay. So thank you, bro. Let me offer my humble obeisances to all the ones.
One chakal tatul paschat Thank you all.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.